you react to the pipe bombs, are you afraid personally ever?
Apparently, I was threatened on Twitter, so I don't know. I didn't see the thing. I heard there was, some severed goat head, and I'll see you soon kind of thing. You can make a bad decision about a candidate. It's not who you are. It doesn't mean you're dumb. It doesn't mean you're different. It doesn't mean, the trouble with what's happening right now is these... That's Space Force.
That's the Space Force, yeah.
That's the beginning of Space Force. That's right.
Did you see Melania's face when Trump tried to hold her hand? Jimmy Kimmel just went nuclear on the most awkward marriage in American history, comparing her to a dying phone battery, constantly buffering and looking for a way out. Even Jim Carrey jumped in on the roast, turning what started as a few jokes into what people are calling a full-scale comedic annihilation. Trump's gonna blow his top when he sees what they said about Melania's obvious escape plans. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Remember when Melania slapped away Trump's hand on that red carpet? Jimmy Kimmel sure does, and he turned it into comedy gold, night after night. What started as a casual observation quickly transformed into one of late-night TV's most anticipated recurring bits.
Not working. Oh, they got you coming and going, man. You know what I mean? Makes me feel good.
When you were a kid, would you draw caricatures of your friends, etc.?
I did. I drew pictures of my teacher.
Oh, really?
And I don't have any of those with me. She actually stole. Wow, look at this! I can do anything with it. I get home. Yeah. So I'll be asleep before my head hits the limo seat.
Can I make you more comfortable? Maybe you'd like to lay your head on this phone.
Kimmel initially spotted what most of us saw. Those awkward moments when the former First Lady seemed about as eager to hold her husband's hand as most people are to hold a wet fish. But where others moved on, Kimmel recognized comedy potential that kept on giving. Melania's hand dodging has become an Olympic sport she's been training for her whole life, Kimmel told his audience during one particularly brutal monologue. The audience roared as he played yet another clip of the former First Lady finding creative ways to avoid her husband's grasp. The Tel Aviv airport incident might be the crown jewel in this collection of awkward moments. When Trump reached for her hand on the tarmac, Melania delivered what can only be described as the slap seen around the world. Kimmel couldn't resist commenting that she treats Trump's hand like it's covered in expired ketchup. The audience practically fell out of their seats. But that wasn't just a one-off joke. As more footage emerged of Melania's reluctance to engage in public displays of affection, Kimmel's audience began anticipating these segments. They became a highlight of his show, with viewers literally waiting to see what new hand dodge the comedian would spotlight next. The phenomenon spread beyond Kimmel's show as compilation videos started popping up across social media platforms. Top 10 times. Melania rejected Trump's hand became an actual genre of content, with millions of views and thousands of comments from people analyzing every flinch and sidestep. What's fascinating is how these jokes evolved over time. They started as simple observations about body language, but gradually transformed into deeper commentary about the Trump marriage. Kimmel would show a clip, then pause it at just the right moment to highlight Melania's expression, a mixture of annoyance and resignation that spoke volumes. "Look at her face here," Kimmel would say, freezing the frame. "That's not the face of someone thinking about what's for dinner. That's the face of someone mentally calculating how many more public appearances she has to endure before she can go back to her golden tower." As Trump's presidency continued, Kimmel's hand dodge segments became more frequent. Each new awkward moment provided fresh material, and the comedian's team became experts at spotting these rejections in real time. Sometimes it seemed like they had a dedicated Melania hand dodge department, whose sole job was to scour footage for these moments. Beyond the infamous Tel Aviv slap that started it all, Kimmel highlighted a catalog of uncomfortable moments. There were multiple Air Force One rejections where Trump would reach out as they descended the stairs only to grasp empty air. Then there was the time Melania strategically used her purse as a shield, clutching it with both hands to prevent any possibility of handholding. The audience couldn't get enough. What made these segments so compelling wasn't just the awkwardness, it was the consistency. Once might be an accident, twice could be coincidence, but this many times? That's a pattern that begged for comedic analysis. Kimmel would frame these moments with questions like, "Is this normal marriage behavior?" before playing a split-screen comparison with other presidential couples showing affection. The contrast spoke for itself with no additional punchline needed. These public rejections created the perfect foundation for what would come next in Kimmel's comedy arsenal. The hand-dodging jokes established a premise that Melania appeared uncomfortable with physical affection toward her husband, which allowed Kimmel to build toward even more savage commentary about their relationship. While most comedians stopped at pointing out Melania's awkward body language, Jimmy Kimmel upgraded his comedy software to include tech metaphors that hit uncomfortably close to home. After years of tracking the First Lady's hand-dodging maneuvers, Kimmel decided to go deeper, turning his comedic lens towards the emotional reality behind her frozen expressions. It all started during a particularly stiff public appearance where Melania stood beside Trump with what Kimmel described as the emotional enthusiasm of someone waiting at the DMV. The audience was already chuckling, but they had no idea what was coming next. Kimmel paused, looked directly into the camera, and delivered the analogy that would become his signature Trump marriage commentary. Have you noticed how Melania looks like what happens when your phone battery is at 1% and you're desperately trying to make it last? Kimmel asked as the audience erupted with laughter. She's conserving every bit of energy, barely moving, afraid that one wrong gesture might drain whatever life force she has left. The comparison hit a nerve because it was so relatable. We've all desperately nursed a dying phone through important moments, just as Melania seemed to be rationing her enthusiasm through official appearances. But Kimmel was just getting warmed up. Once he found this technological vein of comedy gold, he mined it relentlessly. During a state dinner where Melania sat motionless while Trump rambled on, Kimmel observed, "She looks like she's constantly buffering whenever Trump speaks, trying to load a response, but the Wi-Fi connection is just too weak." The audience doubled over as he mimicked the spinning circle of a buffering video, then froze his face in a Melania-like expression of polite detachment. The tech comparisons kept coming. When Trump and Melania appeared in separate locations during the same week, Kimmel suggested she had activated airplane mode to avoid incoming Trump communications. During another appearance where she seemed particularly distant, he wondered if she was running in low-power mode to preserve battery until she could return to New York. Perhaps the most brutal moment came when Kimmel crossed into territory that mixed humor with genuine concern. The studio audience erupted with uncomfortable laughter when he asked if anyone was checking whether she was blinking Morse code for hostage. This line marked a turning point. What started as simple observational comedy about awkward body language had evolved into something more pointed, commentary about power dynamics and emotional states. Kimmel didn't stop at phone batteries. When Melania accompanied Trump to a formal dinner where she barely spoke, he described her as like when your laptop goes into sleep mode but still has enough power to display the screensaver. His tech-savvy audience howled as he added, "She's got that 1,000-yard stare that says a system shutdown imminent." The comedian also painted a vivid picture of Melania's mental state, suggesting her facial expressions around Trump look like she's mentally packing her bags in every public appearance. This line triggered such prolonged laughter that Kimmel had to pause his monologue. What made these jokes land so effectively wasn't just their creativity. It was how they articulated something viewers had observed but couldn't quite put into words. Television critics took notice of this evolution in Kimmel's approach. What began as lighthearted teasing about hand-dodging had transformed into scathing psychological analysis, barely disguised as humor. The phone battery analogy struck such a chord that it quickly spread beyond Kimmel's show, with political commentators and social media users adopting the comparison as shorthand for describing the visible tension in the Trump marriage. One political analyst noted that Kimmel had managed to turn tech support into marriage counseling, while another observed that the comedian had found the perfect metaphor for a relationship running on fumes. The comparison was effective precisely because it avoided direct claims about the Trump's private life, while still communicating volumes through relatable everyday experiences. As Kimmel's tech metaphors were spreading across the internet, an unexpected figure emerged from the shadows of Hollywood with paintbrushes instead of punchlines. Jim Carrey, yes, the same guy who once talked through his butt in Ace Ventura, underwent a startling transformation from rubber-faced comedian to Trump's most savage artistic critic. While most people still thought of Carrey as the goofy guy from Dumb and Dumber, he was quietly creating political artworks that packed more punch than any of his physical comedy ever did. His artistic evolution shocked fans and critics alike. Nobody expected the man who made millions by contorting his face would end up contorting Trump's public image through brutal political cartoons. Carrey's artwork didn't just take gentle jabs at the president, these were visual grenades lobbed directly at the White House. He depicted Trump as a melanoma spreading across democracy and the Wicked Witch of the West Wing. One particularly striking piece showed Trump as a deranged jack-o'-lantern, capturing what Kerry saw as the chaotic nature of his administration. These weren't just funny pictures, they were artistic assassinations of Trump's character that quickly went viral. What made this roast especially potent was how Kimmel incorporated Kerry's artwork into his own show. When Kimmel displayed these cartoons during his monologues, he'd add his own commentary, creating a 1-2 punch that even Trump's infamous thick skin couldn't deflect. It was like watching a comedy tag team where one partner holds the opponent while the other delivers the knockout blow. The collaboration between the two reached its peak when Kerry appeared as a guest on Kimmel's show. What started as a normal celebrity interview quickly evolved into what can only be described as an unexpected Trump marriage roast session. Kerry, no longer constrained to just visual art, unleashed verbal jabs about the Trump relationship that had Kimmel's audience howling. The comedic chemistry between the two was obvious. Kerry would set up the joke with his artistic perspective, and Kimmel would deliver the punchline with his signature deadpan delivery. During one memorable appearance, Kerry explained the deeper meaning behind his artistic turn. "This is a gift from God," he told Kimmel about his political art. The comedian-turned-artist revealed that creating these politically charged pieces allowed him to reconnect with his 8-year-old self. There was something almost spiritual in how Kerry described his artistic mission, as if mocking Trump through cartoons was not just comedy, but a moral calling. What made the Kerry-Kimmel alliance so effective was how it elevated political comedy from simple jokes to artistic commentary. They weren't just going for cheap laughs, they were creating a visual and verbal narrative about what they saw as Trump's failings as both a president and a husband. Kerry's artwork served as what he called a call to arms, designed to shake Americans out of complacency. He even stated that if his work made people uncomfortable, then he was fulfilling his purpose. The media quickly noticed this unusual partnership. Several outlets described the collaboration between Kimmel and Kerry as a full-scale comedic annihilation of the Trump marriage. Political commentators who normally analyzed serious policy issues found themselves discussing Kerry's cartoons and Kimmel's commentary as significant cultural responses to the Trump presidency. Their approach represented a new evolution in political comedy. Rather than simply mocking physical attributes or policy decisions, they created a multi-layered critique that used visual art, psychological insight, and humor to comment on the nature of the Trump relationship. Viewers weren't just laughing at jokes, they were interpreting art and considering deeper questions about what makes a healthy marriage and presidency. What started as playful jabs at awkward hand-holding moments has evolved into America's favorite political comedy routine. When confronted with Kimmel and Kerry's brutal takedowns, Trump reportedly responds with furious ranting and desperate damage control, usually dismissing them as washed-up losers. But his thin-skinned reactions only confirm what these comedians have been highlighting all along: the painfully obvious tension in his marriage. The real genius of Kimmel and Kerry's approach isn't just the jokes themselves, but how they've simply amplified what was already in plain sight. They didn't need to fabricate anything. They just pointed cameras at reality and added punchlines. While Trump furiously tweets in caps lock about unfair treatment and failing comedians, Melania's body language continues to write their material for them. The orange one can rage all he wants, but when your marriage looks like a hostage situation, comedians are gonna notice.